Movie critic Dana Barbuto has a lot to say about Blade Runner 2049. None of it is good. Most of it doesn't even make any sense. What's up, you guys? If it's your first time here, make sure you hit the subscribe button and that little bell right next to it. Also, after you're finished watching the video, throw this video a like if you liked it, and go in the comments and let us know what you thought of this critic's review and what you thought of the movie if you've seen it. Now let's take a look at this dumb critic. Director Denis Villeneuve issued our marching orders. Preserve the experience for the audience. In a message to Boston critics ahead of a screening of Blade Runner 2049, the much anticipated sequel to Ridley Scott's influential 1982 sci-fi gem. I mean, that's fair. Don't ruin it for people who are about to see it. That's fair. I'm okay with that. I mean, you said it like he did something dickish, but it was anti-dickish? I don't know the opposite of dickish. Nice? With such a directive, you'd think something worthy of spoiling is coming. There isn't. It's not like it's a bullshit romantic comedy where you know they're gonna end up together at the end. There are a few twists. This isn't your normal movie. And just because you think it can't be spoiled doesn't mean that the director, everyone in it, and everyone who wants to go see it doesn't, dick. The year 2049 can have its movie. I'll happily pretend it never happened and just stick to Scott's neo-noir classic. You walked into this movie ready to hate. You didn't even want this movie to be made. That's what's going on. That's it. Instead of all of the people who are excited to see a continuation of this story, you walked in and you went, that movie's perfect. You can't make it as good. It's gonna suck. And why am I listening to you? This entry, well, since there's no point in describing the plot, well, you're apparently not allowed. According to Denis. I'll share some of my experiences watching this grueling 164-minute sequel. Yes, you read that right. It's a bladder buster. Length of time with movies seems to be a big thing with critics. I don't understand. You probably revere some of the longest movies ever made as some of the greatest movies ever made. Recently, for some reason, anytime there's a movie that's over the 1 hour and a half mark, you're like, what the f***? I don't get it. Did you like Dances with Wolves? Won a ton of awards. It's long. Did you like Lawrence of Arabia? Won a ton of awards. It's long. Some movies are long. Some books are like this thick, and they're amazing. Some books are like that, and they're also amazing. And there's also books of those sizes that suck. It's not the size that counts. This turned into a penis thing. There was a chair there. I laughed in inappropriate places, like when one character is killed. I popped 2 Advil around the beginning of the second hour because Hans Zimmer's score is savage and not in that cool way 10-year-old boys use the word to mean awesome. It's loud, and I'm not too old, and man am I trying to connect with the youth. The score wasn't savage, it was ratchet. People still say ratchet, right? I don't even know what that means. This shit's basic. Is any of this working? Do the kids like my review? About halfway through, I looked over to check on my colleague. He was dead. No, I'm just kidding. On my colleague Bob to see if he was sleeping. He wasn't, but the confused look on his face spoke volumes. Wow, that was really underwhelming. I looked at my colleague to see if he was sleeping. He wasn't. That is all. There's still a chair there. Then I was frustrated. Ryan Gosling, La La Land, because no one knows who Ryan Gosling is. It's like if a movie has Tom Hanks in it, it's like, Tom Hanks, everything. Like, he's like the male actor that women and men equally love. Everyone knows who he is. That's the dumbest. Upon whose shoulders rests this whole dystopian enterprise fails to draw me in. He broods a lot. He's a Blade Runner. You said you saw Blade Runner, right? And how Harrison Ford broods through the whole thing. It's kind of like their MO. They have this like tactical job that they have to do, so they're brooding. What do you want them to do? Just being like, you're retired. Just all smiles from here. Sorry for killing you. What the f movie you want, right? Happy Madison Productions presents Blade Runner. No, Steve Buscemi's like Dave Bautista's character. And then Rob Schneider's the gun. He's playing a robot, and it shows. And that's just boring. His face is pretty, but it's a slog, spending nearly 3 hours with a blank expression. You're treating this like it's Kristen Stewart's performance in Twilight. And in that case, she was playing a human. Like, he's actually playing a robot. He had every right to do that. She did not. F you, Kristen Stewart. Villeneuve also neuters the noirish mood that made the original, well, savage. This time I do mean awesome. You know what's savage? Alliteration! Nice job! More to the point, you're saying that he got rid of the noirish mood? That movie was so dark and about dark things. How did he get rid of the mood? The entire movie is dark. There are moments when you can barely tell what's on the screen because of light and fog, and it was on purpose and effective to create a noirish mood. I don't know if you know what that word means. This sequel is, simply put, an overwrought action movie set in a desolate future 30 years after the events in the first film. It's no different than the recent dud Ghost in the Shell, which incidentally ripped off the original Blade Runner. There are so many things wrong with that. So many things wrong with that. The action in this movie was actually minimal. Most of the movie wasn't action. So to say it's just an overwrought action film is just stupid because most of the movie was dialogue and not action. It's like saying McDonald's is a vegan restaurant just because they serve salads. Of course, most of their salads have cheese and bacon on them and whatever they call chicken. As for the comment about Ghost in the Shell, Ghost in the Shell was a direct adaptation and not a continuation. So already right there, you're just completely wrong. I don't feel like I have to continue because you're immediately wrong, so why go to why you're wrong further? When the script finally gets around to Deckard, Ford props, you know, the movie's not about him. Finally, the guy this movie isn't about is here. It's not about him. You know, he also recently reprised his role as Han Solo, and it took a second to see him. You know why? Because the movie wasn't about him. Ford props up the proceedings with some signs of life, but that energy is fleeting, and my thoughts were wandering to how I could make my meatballs tastier. Make them vegan. Now, vegan meatballs available at McDonald's. He brought life. He was brooding just as much as Ryan Gosling. Everything was like, what are you doing here? There was so much breath in everyone's voice that I thought it was gonna fog up the screen I was watching it on. I'm not sure why I thought of meatballs, but I did. I am, because everything you're saying is from left field and makes no sense. So why not? Why not fucking throw meatballs in there? Who cares? Clearly hungry, I grabbed an energy bar from my bag to fuel up for the final, unsatisfying, oh, you're making a connection that doesn't exist. None of this happened. I don't actually believe that happened. The movie wears its philosophies on its sleeve, but somewhere in the script is a cool detective story that's actually, wait for it, engaging. Too bad Villeneuve eschews developing this to instead take on what he dreams meteor pursuits. So we're still on the meat thing. We're still talking about meatballs. The guy who was sitting next to you was confused. If he's confused, there might be a detective story in there somewhere. Something to figure out. Because someone right next to you didn't understand what was going on and was probably trying to figure it out. Maybe that's why he wasn't sleeping. Some advice. If you must see Blade Runner 2049, then do yourself a favor and watch the original first. Duh. How is that advice? In fact, we went with someone who hadn't seen it first and he walked away and he's like, man, I really want to see the first one. I feel like it's gonna fill in some plot holes and things I didn't understand. And I was like, yeah, because it's continuing the story. By the way, that person was Vince from the self-deprecating romantic pop rock group RKVC. They're good friends of ours and you should check out their channel. Oh, and I missed Duo. And actually that person we went with that hadn't seen the first one was Vince, one of the members of I'm gonna try and do that again. And actually the person who went and saw it with us, who hadn't seen the first one, was a guy named Vince, one half of the self-deprecating romantic pop rock duo RKVC. They're good friends of ours. They have a YouTube channel. Check it out. 30 years ago, that movie left moviegoers pondering the burning question, is Deckard a man or machine? By the end of Blade Runner 2049, you don't even care because it was answered. And also they made it clear that it didn't really matter. Like there's literally parts of the movie where someone like, is that a machine or not a machine? And they're like, does it matter? Because it's all about questioning life and soul and what is actually life and what, I'm gonna have to explain 2 movies to you? You said you liked the first one. Thank you guys so much for watching. If it's your first time here, hit the subscribe button and that little bell right next to it. Also, we'd love to hear what you thought about the Blade Runner 2049 down in the comments, or even this person's review. Do you agree or disagree? Let us know. If you want to see another one from us, click one of the videos on the screen, and until we see you next time, geek out and game on.